And lastly, for this evening, why am I doing this? Because I adore my work. It's simply gorgeous. In my world, life is really, really hard because of Parkinson's. Art is easy, provided you do the prep. It took me 5 years of research to write this thing. When I got down to writing it, um, well, it was like sex. It was absolutely effortless and totally enjoyable, and I can't tell you how much fun that year was. I generally do not rewrite. I do, but generally don't. I generally just reread and say, wow. So, yeah, so you can whatever. So, but that's actually the truth. I'm not pretending. I don't know if my work will always be that way, but certainly since I started writing those radio stories, there's just this pulse thing that I hone in on, and that's where intelligence and passion dance together. And once I figured that out, and I just I figured it out by falling in love many, many years ago with a woman in university who was so smart, so much smarter than me, and so much better than me, that to write to her summoned everything I had, and it was like, whoa, this is the way it ought to be. So I'm very much in her debt. But yeah, so I'm reading these because they make me feel great. Um, should I finish with something after all that? Probably. Maybe something shorter. Do you have a shorter name? Um, well, let's do that thing where you just sort of open the text and see what comes to whatever. Actually, why don't we go back to Sap's War, because it's so much more uh, difficult actually. But there are all sorts of sure. This Sap's War is they go to the Vimy. The characters of the first novel generally go to the Vimy Monument when it's opened in 1936, and here's Stan and Jenny at Vimy. This is called Sandbags Out of Stone. They've made the sandbags out of stone, Stan thought. The same way you might say, oh, you shouldn't have, to some much-wanted embodiment of the ephemeral, flowers of the forest of seedlings that pushed and pined in their hearts, the pilgrims, come at last beneath the shadow of those pylons that heaped their eyeless angels into sky. The pylons are the two twin peaks, as it were, of the Vimy Monument, designed by Walter Allward. Concrete sandbags, blanched bricks, petrified pillows, the exact opposite of what they had been, cushions to absorb the shock of shells. Stan's eyes bounced off them in the bright, so pulled out his shades and put them on, then let himself into the trench, slipping down heel-scuffing sides and landing in a farmer's squat on the stolid, unsinkable bath mat, high and dry as a martini, raised to erase the past. This was Vimy. This, the Canadian front line. Make it last. If you go to Vimy today, you'll see that the trenches, they've made the sandbags out of stone, so they'll last. It's kind of obvious, but anyway. Is this what would have happened if the war had gone on? Say 1936 marked its 22nd year. Stone sandbags, fixed positions, civilization perpetually under siege. And what's the difference, he thought? In a million years, some benign hand will unearth this park of Armageddon and trace the lines of primeval war. Stan had married Jenny, and with her had re-entered time and space, and he was aging rapidly. Soldier's heart had come with that heart of hers. His heart of stone gave way to sand. He couldn't shore it up, running through the hourglass of position. No, it's running through the hourglass of passion. Isn't that an interesting mistake? That ran out here, clambered over these steeps of stone, the lees of courage left behind in the deafening overshot. Overrun, he remembered, the Germans coming up, after the first wave had passed them by. Some had fought, some surrendered, some were shot as they wondered, or taken as they thought. The night before, Stan had dreamt of shells coming right for his head, had felt their metal spiraling towards him, heard the whoosh of their velocities, and felt, too, sheer helplessness, not elation, as he had here before. He couldn't believe he'd survived it. Hill 145, his mother, he recalled, striding over broken, rugged ribbon, beside him, sudden, stepping through the terrain of her Miltonic mind. What did she quote? Leviathan, petrified, stone boat, concrete sea, their struggle for the fixed in the flux of muck cast into pure form. Nobody is hurting me. Vimy was unique in that it forbade defense in depth. Its sheerer side facing east, its delusively easy slope west, lap of death that had drowned a city of Moroccans, thirsting with knives, preferring their bayonets to bullets, dodging nothing. It was defense in height alone, raised like these walls of stone, that Stan's hands stroked now. Jenny smiled down at him, standing on the peridot, and made to go, leave him with his memories, but he wanted her beside him. Come down, come on, these stone sandbags, he wanted her soft beside him. When they had given, he had not. His hardened body had brushed their corners raw. He wanted the strength of her beside him now, that swaying gait of the first felt love of his life. She smirked down at him, sensing him wanting her, straining upward like a boy in a bathtub. Let him wait, she thought. I'm not going to be groped, even by you, my darling, before the king arrives. The king was on his way.